US President Donald Trump has delivered his address to the United Nations General Assembly, outlining his and America's vision of today's world. We can get more details now from Ilya Petrenko in New York. He was following what was said. And Ilya, what were the key points there, and what was his overall message?
Andrew, hi again. Yes, we're indeed done and dusted with Tuesday's UNGA highlight. That is the speech of Donald Trump, which actually had a very awkward beginning to it. For some reason, the American president decided to begin by telling the entire world how his administration was doing a good job. And here's what that looked like.
The economy is booming like never achieved their lowest levels ever recorded. It's okay. America's economy is booming like never achieved their lowest levels ever recorded. It's okay. In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
The general reception by the audience was rather warm, but more awkward moments were to come. Donald Trump stressed that his country would not intervene in other nations' affairs and basically said that Washington will stop telling other countries what to do. And almost immediately after that, the American president got to doing just that. Tehran was viciously told off, and the government there was called many things, including a brutal and corrupt dictatorship and also the world's greatest sponsor of terrorism. Everyone else around the world was told to start or continue isolating Iran. Donald Trump was sharp and ready to bite. Rather surprisingly, I should say, in that speech, he went after the OPEC oil-producing countries for keeping the oil prices low. Countries with socialist governments were made bad guys as well. Worst off was Venezuela. Just check out some more of these highlights of the Donald Trump speech.
Excellent. We reject the ideology of globalism. OPEC and OPEC nations are, as usual, ripping off the rest of the world. We want them to start lowering prices, and they must contribute substantially to military protection from now on. Germany will become totally dependent on Russian energy if it does not immediately change course. All nations of the world should resist socialism and the misery that it brings to everyone. So many countries in the Middle East strongly supported my decision to withdraw the United States from the horrible 2015 Iran nuclear deal.
So the issue with Iran is probably one of the most complicated. Donald Trump said that many other countries applauded his exit from the so-called Iran nuclear deal. However, we remember that pretty much none of the other signatories, Russia, China, and the major European powers, supported that collapse on the deal and that decision to ditch it from the American side. And on Monday, Federica Mogherini said that Iran was fully complying with the deal and that Europe even came up with a special financial mechanism to keep dealing with Iran in defiance of U.S. sanctions. Donald Trump also, during his speech, praised his great progress in the Middle East. However, he failed to mention all the mess that unraveled after his decision to move Israel's capital, to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, that unraveled around that city and inside that as well. So it was indeed a controversial speech, Donald Trump's second speech at the UN General Assembly. But what else can you expect from the man, especially if he's addressing the entire world here at the UN HQ in New York?
OK, thanks, Ilya Petrenko there for us in New York. Well, we can get more reaction now too, because we can go live to Hiba Murad. She's a political analyst and commentator, and she's with us this evening. You're very welcome. What did you make of Donald Trump's comments about Iran, and what do you expect to be the reaction from Tehran?
Well, Trump's comments today were a bit ridiculous, because everyone knows that without Tehran and the efforts of Iraq, Russia, and the resistance forces in the region, we would have terrorism everywhere. Meanwhile, his words were nonsense, because the efforts of these powers together was what brought stability to the region. At the time when the American government, Trump's government, was basically, along with its allies in the region, such as the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and others, supporting these terrorist groups in the region. Sure. And we have actually heard General Flint saying this live on TV.
What then do you think will be the reaction from the administration, from the Iranian government, to what was said today at the General Assembly?
Well, I do not think that Trump's words are worth believing. Trump is basically trying to defend himself, and he's trying to basically talk about his accomplishments during the 2 years, which was even sarcastic for the people attending the assembly. Iran basically is trying its utmost efforts to cooperate with its allies in the region to fight terrorism, which has been caused by the U.S. And of course, we know that President Rouhani had declared earlier that he will not be meeting Trump because of different elements, one of which is because of the U.S. government withdrawing from the deal and proving to be untrustworthy and inconsistent in its foreign policy all the time.
Do you think Donald Trump will win any support for what he said today about Iran? I mean, he did sort of put forward an argument, didn't he? He said that since the nuclear deal was signed, Iran has spent or has increased its military spending by 40%, and he said that's not good. How do you think that will win over much support, or do you think what he said will actually work against America's interests?
Well, I think that above all, Trump has been trying to put America first today in his speech. And going back to Iran and its status in the world, I mean, Iran has been showing on and on that it's being credible, it's sticking to the deal. In terms of military expenditure, Iran is the 19th country worldwide in terms of military expenditure, which means that the Israeli regime, Turkey, many other countries, the United States itself is ahead in terms of this aspect. So I do not see why Iran should be concerned. And the Iranian officials have over and over repeated that if anyone is to be concerned about the situation, it's Trump himself.
Yeah, and given the fact that we heard today, too, on the same day, the EU saying it was going to implement new measures to help circumvent any sort of US sanctions against Iran, too, it's clear that he hasn't got full support, isn't it? I mean, he must realise that what he says isn't entirely true, because many people have voiced their rejections to what he's been saying.
Very true. Trump should actually start realizing that he has been, instead of making America great again, he's been isolating the United States of America. Even the European Union and his allies in Europe are not happy with his attitude towards Iran, which has proved on and on again repetitively that it has abided by the deal, which, of course, the EU approved of and still approves of. However, the ball is in the EU's court now to prove whether it's spineless or it's brave enough to find a way out and preserve the deal with Iran.
OK, Hiba, look, nice to talk to you tonight. That was Hiba Murad, political analyst and commentator. Thank you. Well, security and political analyst Omar Nashabi noted numerous basic contradictions in Trump's speech.
He had very strong words about patriotism, almost so strong that it could be perhaps qualified as a kind of a new rise of a, he's calling for nationalism, extreme nationalism, and that is unfortunate because that moves the world towards a more difficult place to actually manage in a peaceful way from the United Nations. And he had very strong words towards the ICC, and this is an organization that was created in 1999, 2000, and many countries have signed the Rome Declaration, and they're part of the ICC. So this attack is attacking all the nations who believe in the ICC as an organization that is capable of bringing justice forward. So it's also another contradiction because he talks about the rule of law and at the same time he attacks the International Criminal Court. I'm not sure that his speech on an ideological level, on a strategic level holds altogether. It has a lot of contradictions and weaknesses.